Hey there everyone, it's Brave here, and I'm doing another video today, and the subject is talking about what I think happens after we die. And this is based on psychic experiences I've had. I've been given visions because I've had a gift passed down to me through my mother's line. Now, I'm not someone who ever has done witchcraft, nothing like that. I was brought up Christian, but I'm religious. I would say I'm spiritual, not religious. I think that I definitely know there's a higher power, and there's no, religion doesn't really have anything to do with it. It's more that these things exist whether you believe them or not. These things exist as in good angels, source, whether you call the higher power God or whatever your religion tells you to call it. There is a higher power that created us all, that, and then what I basically was shown in visions and, gathered from other people who have had near-death experiences, like a friend of mine, for instance. She's from New Zealand, and she told me when she had a car crash, and then she left her body and went into a light, and she said that it was the most beautiful feeling of just love and welcoming, and it was as if no matter what you did or didn't do, you were loved, you were forgiven. There was no judgment, there was no you're going to hell. It was just, come back home. It was a feeling of, oh, I'm going home, this earth is not my real home. And what I was led to believe is that when she went to this other place, this is what she said. She was told it wasn't her time, but that she had many things that were meant for her to do that were going to help others, and that she had to come back. So she didn't want to come back because it's such a beautiful feeling of being at peace and being home. But then when she did come back, and then the accident was obviously a bad one, but she healed in a way that the doctors were like, this is a miracle, you should be dead, how. And obviously she did leave her body, before ambulances got there, and came back, and then she came back into her body, her soul came back into her body. And that's when, after they've done all the life-saving techniques, the ambulance workers and that, then she's back on earth plane. So what I really do believe is that when we die, you go to the light and you are shown a life review if it's your time. And some people, if they have a purpose, a really, really specific purpose, where this death was not meant to occur at that time, they will be sent back, maybe don't have a choice because they have to fulfill, this lesson. And also I was told that we actually choose our lives, which kind of was hard for me to understand because I've had a really hard life. And I know people who've had worse lives than me, and I know there's people around the world suffering even worse than me, and that's the scary thing. Like, when I think, wow, I've had a terrible life, imagine I'm not the worst victim, that's so sad to know that people are suffering so much, and you can't take away their suffering, and that hurts me as an empath, as a light worker, as a good person. It just hurts my heart knowing there's so many innocent souls suffering here on this earth plane, which is meant to be a school, really, an earth school, where we pick a life and review it and say, okay, this soul is going to go through this and this and this for the first 20 years of their life, but then that terrible thing that happens is going to give them the the strength to do something positive, or they're not going to let that bad thing overtake them in a negative way. It's going to push them to do good for others, kind of thing. And so what I found hard to understand, like I said, was just, well, why would I choose this life? Why wouldn't I choose a life where, okay, I suffer a bit, but then I get a reward after years of suffering? Like, it's very strange, because I remember going to, even though I have psychic gifts, but I went to a medium who had full-on psychic gifts where she could actually see angels and speak to, the dead and stuff. And she wasn't a bad person. She was a light worker, a good soul. And, when she told me, she and two other people who had the same gift as her, different people, different cities in the UK, telling me the same thing. And that's how you know they're getting a message from spirit, from, the positive angels trying to give you the message. Because I kept asking, when is my life going to change? Is there any point going on? If this is my life, I don't want it. Many days I say, I don't want to be here. I hate my life. I hate this world, but I always felt a bit like guilty, or if I took my own life, or nervous that, oh no, what if I get trapped here down on earth, like my soul or my spirit? I don't want to be, if I sadly couldn't take it anymore and took my own life, I don't want my spirit to be trapped, haunting the house where I took my own life. Do you know what I mean? And trigger warning to anyone, I don't want to upset anyone by talking about how I felt, but this is just an honest conversation, that there are days when, as strong as I am, I'm so overwhelmed by the psychological pain of having narcissistic parents who used to beat you and treat you badly, and that pain never went away, even when I left my family behind and cut them off. But it was like many, many years of tolerating these abusive family members and having them in your life and having blind loyalty to your abusers. It really took a toll on me. And then when I finally thought, I have to get away from these people, they really don't care, and they've shown you 100 times, when are you going to get away? And that was the scariest feeling, to actually say, fine, I'm going to cut them all off, because it meant you're totally alone, family-wise. And any other family you have are in another country, and they're far away. But the ones who are nearby, you can't trust them. They're abusers, they're cruel, they want your downfall, they pray for your downfall. It's very sad. And you don't want to admit that this is what's really happening. You want to think that, well, one day we'll make up and they'll be perfect, and if I just love them enough, they'll treat me right. And and then when they keep showing you, no, I will mistreat you, no, I will make you feel like nothing, I will continue to do this, because they get some sadistic pleasure from it. Because sadly, people with narcissistic personality disorder, the disorder does not allow them to ever connect with positive emotions. If you have anything good happening for you and you go and tell them, they will be jealous, they will be angry. Even if they don't say it to you, they will be plotting behind your back, hoping you fail. And if they can make you fail, they will do it. If they can badmouth you and get the job taken away, or get the opportunity taken away, they will do it. But they might do it behind your back, and you might not realize how it got taken away, the opportunity. So so back to what happens after death. So like, when I always felt like, when I don't want to be here, as in just feeling so depressed and overwhelmed, the thing that held me back was just, well, I can't take myself out of here. It has to be someone else has to take me out of here. I feel guilty, or like I'm not going to be forgiven or something. That's the religious thing being drilled into you as a kid, that taking yourself out of this life would be a sin or whatever. But now, through being told by people who've had near-death experiences where they've actually died and gone to source, and then even people who took themselves out of here and then they left their body and went to the other side, and then they were shown that there is pure love. There's no judgment. There's no, oh, we don't forgive you because you took your own self out of your life. And so that really brought me some comfort, because I really did feel like I mean, I know that I've been given a huge amount of strength as an empath. So being here on this planet, yes, I do have more strength than others. I genuinely do. People have really tried to destroy me, and every time I got back up, and I would say to them, is that the best you can do? I'm still standing. Oh, you did this, you did that, you took this from me, you pushed me down to rock bottom. Guess what? I'm getting back up. It might take me a while to get back up, but I will get back up. And I always had that power. And even my enemies had to turn around and kind of give you some compliment and say, wow, I really tried to destroy you and I turned everyone against you and I successfully got the whole world to hate you, and you still got up and you never bowed your head, and even if you're broken and bloody, you always got up and looked us right in the eye and never let us win, never let us beat you. And it's like, but it's not easy being that strong, because then for some bizarre reason the evil in the world wants to smite you and take away your happiness, or destroy you. It's very creepy. Like being a person of light and a good soul and an empath, whatever you want to call it, just being a decent person who's pure of heart, who genuinely cares about other human beings, who genuinely wants to take away the suffering of others, who will always look to help someone. Why is it that those kind of people are mistreated the most, suffer the most? So lately, when talking with people who have had these near-death experiences, I ask these questions and say, well, what were you told when you went on the other side? Were you told why we would choose a life of suffering, abuse of all kinds? Why would we choose that? What is there to learn from the abuse? How can this horrific abuse teach anyone anything? How can war and famine and poverty, how is that teaching us anything? And what do we do with this on the other side when we die and go back to our home, our true home? What do we do with all the suffering we've experienced down here in the Earth School? Don't we just feel traumatized by it and just like, wow, I'm not going back down there. Please don't send me back. I've had enough. So yeah, it's really hard for me to understand that part, and I'm still coming to grips with that part. As much as people try to explain it to me and say, well, for instance, take me for instance. I'm a adult person, I'm over, in my late 20s, so I'm not a kid. I've lived some life, but I was odd by someone I trusted, someone I was in a relationship with, and when I tried to leave them, they decided to punish me by doing that, violating me. And it was very, very shocking because I really trusted this person and I never believed they could do something like this. And so what I couldn't understand was why, like, what am I supposed to learn from this? I was like, why are all these terrible things happening to me? I survived my whole childhood that was terrible. There was no abuse of that kind of violation. There was violence, but no other type of abuse. There was just verbal and violent abuse. But then to have this happen to you as a grown person, it was very shocking to me because I was like, this is not a stranger on the street who dragged me into an alleyway. This is someone I trusted, would have gave my life for, and they took advantage of that trust. The person, was like a friend of the family, and then we ended up in a relationship. But then it's just, I had no idea the monster that was hiding in that person when you... And then I found out he was a malignant, sadistic narcissist, after I found that out. I didn't know, at the time when I got with him, that he was capable of things. People didn't tell me this. But and then what was upsetting, the thing that I found really bizarre was like, people didn't care because they liked him as a friend, or they thought, oh, well, he's been my friend for years, so, I'm not going to help you send him to jail, or I'm not going to back you up. Oh, no, he told me he did that to you, but I'm not going to back you up. It was sickening to see how easy it was for people to go along with evil or turn a blind eye to evil. So I won't dwell on that too much because it's making me angry talking about it. But the reason I brought it up was just that the fact that this happened to me, I couldn't comprehend why it happened. Like, as in, if I chose this life, why would I choose that? Why would I choose to have this horrific experience and have the person I trusted be the perpetrator who did it to me? But then after a while after, when I was really, really struggling with what had happened mentally, it was on my mind that I'm not going to get justice for this and no one's on my side, and I feel violated and disgusted, and, like, I was like, I shouldn't feel any shame, but people are trying to make me feel ashamed for talking about it, as if to say, oh, you're only going to make yourself look bad if you go to the police, or you're only going to put your business out there, and why don't you just pretend it didn't happen? And it was like, well, I tried to pretend it didn't happen, but now I feel mentally stressed out and upset, because I know this person has committed a crime, a very horrific crime, and they shouldn't be allowed to get away with this. They could do it to someone else, So anyway, he was punished. But the fact that, it's just, I just couldn't understand what was the point. What lesson could I learn from something this horrible? But then after a while, when I just really didn't know who to reach out to, I just came across a group that, I guess you call it a support group. It's a bit like how an AA group, the Alcoholics Anonymous in America, sit in a big circle and talk about what they're going through. Well, in the UK, we have a group called Changes, and they set up groups, volunteers, set up and run the groups, and basically anyone can show up free and just talk or not talk, or just sit there and listen. So then, I can't remember who told me about it. It could have been the police or I could have looked it up. I can't remember. This was a long time ago. And when I went there the first time, it was so strange. I was like, why am I going to talk about this in front of these strangers? Why would I talk about one of the worst things that's happened to me personally, that I can't undo. And, even if I take revenge on this person, I can't do to them what they did to me. I can't violate them the way they violated me. Not that I would want to, because I'm not a monster. So, but it's just like, what I mean is, there's no eye for an eye. I can't inflict on you an equal amount of suffering, because what you did is so disgusting and gross. It's on a level that I'm a woman, you're a man. I can't argue, it was just like, you're going to get away with this. And, it really, it can't be undone. I would have rather the person punched me in the face. I could have got over that quicker, because I could hit you back equally, but it was just, this is something, there's never going to be it can never be equaled, as in to get justice for. You're always, because the victim or the survivor always carries the pain of what was done to them. So even if the person is punished, it's not going to take away the hurt, the pain, Anyway, so then, so when I went there, and then I kind of listened to everyone's story, and there was at least 20 people sitting there. And as I heard people telling these awful, awful stories, worse than my stories, and I thought, wow, if these people are, telling these terrible stories, but they're saying that this group has helped them, maybe I should tell my story. Maybe they do understand, because they've been through worse, and some had been, had the same thing happen to them, just by different people, but people they trusted. Some unfortunately were children when it happened. Some, it was their family members who did it. It was very sad to hear, but at the same time, you knew they understood that pain of, someone they trusted abusing them, violating them, and not being able to trust people again, or not being able to get over it. You move on, you live, but it's still something that it will always bother you that it happened to you. It's not easy to let go of. There's a lot of anger and rage that I still haven't let go of. I don't know if I ever can. And I definitely don't want to forgive, because it's unforgivable, But I remember when I did tell my story, and then at the very end, someone said, I want to tell my story because what you said happened to me, and I've never spoken about it before, but I'm going to speak about it because the way you just spoke clearly and candidly, like very open and honest. And I cried, even though I was telling it everything honestly. And I did tell people, trigger warning, I'm going to just say exactly what happened, if that's okay, and just get it off my chest, kind of thing, to people who can understand. And then they, at least 2 other ladies said, yes, that happened to me. I understand exactly what you're saying, that complex feeling of I really loved and cared about this person, and look at the diabolical, hideous thing they've done to me. And you grieve the fact that, wow, I wish this person had just been normal. I thought they were normal, and they weren't the person I thought they were at all. But everyone wants to pretend that they are this nice person. Let's pretend they're good. No, we can't. Well, you can, but I can't, But it's like, yeah, and then even like a male guy, like a male, because in my mind I was forgetting that males can be violated, whether when they're kids, when they're men. Like, it's not just a female thing, of being violated by people. Anyone can be violated. I mean, the perpetrators can be male or female. Obviously, it's more power from a male violating a female because they're more stronger, but some creepy females can violate people with men, or we don't know. Yeah, it's not just a male female thing. And then, yeah, like a young man told me that something happened to him when he was young, and it was a family member, and it was extremely distressing because like what I was describing, how I was confused because when I wanted to go to the police, people were like, oh, but he's got family, and what? Oh, you're going to shame him, and they didn't have any consideration for the fact that he had committed a terrible crime, the fact that I was suffering after, physically and mentally. They didn't care. It was very bizarre how they were just interested in his reputation, how he's going to feel, how he's going to look. What a weird world, what a sick world we live in, that adults and children can be violated so disgustingly and no one cares, like it's very upsetting. And so I was trying to explain the complex feeling like, well, I was in love with this person, obviously, before it happened. And then your feelings that don't turn off immediately. But obviously, when the incident happened, I hated this person. I was angry at this person. But then it was like there was that small part of you that was like, oh, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they were drunk. Maybe this, like, you almost want to make it, you want to pretend it didn't happen, but you can't. So you try and go into denial, like, okay, well, there's an excuse, and of course there's no excuse. But yeah, it was very confusing. It took a long time to cut off that attachment to that person, whether it was a trauma bond, whether it was, it just took a while to drop that initial love and care I had for the person, because I thought we were going to build a life together, and then they do this disgusting thing. I can't trust this person again, so yeah, it was very hard. And so that young man said, yeah, I imagine like one of your parents violates you, and obviously you love your parent, but they've done this terrible thing, so you understand that they have to go to jail or whatever, but you still feel guilty because you're the one that put them in jail, even though they have done something terrible that requires them to be punished. And so he totally understood, because I kept saying, oh, I sound crazy saying that, part of me hates him and part of me loves him. It wasn't that I loved him or the badness he did. It was more just that messed up feeling of I haven't been able to dissolve the feelings that were there before the incident happened. And I wondered, oh, people won't understand, and then he understood, the young man understood, and he said, oh, the way you explained it really helped me understand myself, because I wouldn't even want to tell people that's how I felt. You want to say, no, I hate the person and I never want to see him again. But then you feel guilty when you think, well, I want my parent back, but obviously I don't want to be abused by them. But now I don't want to be around them because I can't trust them. And it's a very complicated situation. And so, yeah, so when I went there and saw how people actually said I helped them just by telling my story, for the first time, I realized that, oh, that's so weird. How could something good come out of this terrible thing? But somehow, all of us telling each other our stories, and we're complete strangers. I've never met these people before. And I was nervous, like, well, I'm telling strangers, what if we bump into each other in the supermarket? They know the worst thing that happened to me. But because they too had something similar happen, they understand, and it's not going to be gossip or ridicule, it's going to be support from from one human being to another, from one soul to another, understanding we've survived something terrible, and we're going to try and get over it, get through it. I mean, you never get over these things, but it's to keep going forward without letting the negative emotion overwhelm you, I think. But yeah, it was just, that was the only thing that I could think, okay, if this was a terrible lesson I had to go through, the only thing I could learn from it was to become resilient, more stronger, more resilient, more capable of transmuting that pain into speaking up. And then it gave others a voice. It gave others the feeling that, oh, I can voice my hurt too, because she understands me. And it triggered multiple people to talk about stuff they said they'd never spoken about and they thought they'd never be able to speak to anyone about. And I just felt like, wow, that's wow, if something good can come out of this terrible thing, I guess this is it. Just like helping people find their voice, And then I did speak at a couple of other support groups, and the same thing happened. I told the story exactly how it was, and every time I kind of cried because it triggered me to cry. But people would, cry with me or, want to hug me and stuff. And at the time, I think COVID was going on a little bit, and I remember saying, I'm not being disrespectful, but let's not hug. But I appreciate the fact that you felt moved to hug me. But I was very OCD already. And then because the pandemic was happening, it was like, this was a bit after the pandemic, but we were still on high alert in the UK. I was still wearing a mask way after everyone else had taken theirs off. I was still carrying a big bottle of hand sanitizer everywhere. And I was like, please don't shake my hand, please don't touch my stuff, please, But yeah, it was very, very, it was like, it made me feel better just knowing that I'd made someone else feel better. So obviously going over the story, telling my story and going over the details graphically was, on one hand it was triggering and upsetting, but because it was helping others, that took away the sting of having to repeat it, because by letting it out of myself, it enabled others to find their voice and let some of that grief out of them. And we all cried together, and then we all hugged, well, some hugged, I didn't hug, but I respectfully declined, I wasn't rude. But yeah, it was just very strange to see, that this horrible thing happened, and I could never have worked out before I went to the support group how this was part of a life I chose. Why would I choose this? How is this going to help me? This made me hate the world and hate males for a long time. I don't feel that way now, but initially I was furious. And I didn't want to stand near any males. If any male looked at me in the gym, I'd say, "What are you looking at? Stop looking at me running on the treadmill, you perv." It was just like that feeling of people ogling you, or you would mistake and misinterpret every look from a male as they want to hurt you, they've got bad intentions, don't be alone with them, really, really freaking out, oh no, the gas man has to read the meter, I need to have another person here, I need to have, a baseball bat behind the door just in case. It was, I'm not laughing, but it was just, now I feel so much calmer and so much more stronger and secure. I'm still vigilant. I'm not ever going to be, I'm never going to let my guard down. I'd rather have my guard up than, what do they say? Yeah, I'd rather have a guard up and not need it than to need it and not have it. That's how I feel. But when I laugh, it's more just that's just how I talk. So I hope no one thinks I'm laughing at any of these serious things, because I'm certainly not. But I just just remembering how, when you felt out of control, and then when you come out of it, you look back and go, oh my God, I was so out of control. I feel sorry for that version of me, because I was so different. And then when I came back to my true self, who was strong and not afraid and not letting anything defeat me, I could forgive myself for panicking and freaking out, because that was just how the situation made me feel at the time. It affected me. It made me feel like I'd have panic attacks if I was alone in a room with a strange man I didn't know, or, you know, in a public place, even full of cameras. I didn't want to be alone in a room with anyone, because I thought, well, what's the camera going to do if this person attacks me? Yes, it might be shown in court after the fact, but how is it going to stop this person attacking me? You know, people are attacked all the time, and CCTV is watching. It doesn't stop the attack, you know. But yeah, so looking back on that version of myself that is not me now, it's just, you know, you almost can't believe it. It's like looking at someone else almost. It's very strange, you know. And I'm just so glad I'm back to my normal self, and I'm strong, and I don't put this awful incident in the forefront of my mind. It doesn't define me. It doesn't it doesn't take away my worth. It doesn't degrade me, because I didn't do anything wrong. You know, I didn't deserve that. I didn't, you know. And just like other victims, you didn't deserve it. It wasn't your fault. You know, you can't be responsible for the monstrous things other people choose to do, or their disorders make them do it. You know, there's no excuse whether they've got a personality disorder or not. Like, there's no excuse for going around destroying people and violating people. So yeah, it's very you know, with the life after death, you know, what I've been told, that, you know, you die, you go to the other side. Like, say if you were about to smash into a tree because you lost control of your car, before you feel the pain of smashing into the tree, your soul is going to, like, if you're definitely set to die, you're meant to die, the angels know this, they're already there. You know, they know that this is about to happen, so they're there to protect your soul, take your soul out of your body, so you won't even feel the impact. It will just be, oh my gosh, I'm going to hit the tree, and then click, you're in the light, not feeling the pain, because you're not in that body anymore. You understand? So when you're out of your body in the light, and you're with your guides and the angels, and that's when, you know, if you're meant to come back, you'll be given information that could be helpful to your, you know, your life plan that you chose before you were born into this life. You know, it's reincarnation basically. If you choose to come back here, and you choose the lessons you want to learn and the experience you want to go through, because I guess you could say the worse things you go through, the higher your soul will evolve and ascend, because, you know, the stronger the lesson. Obviously, some people, the lessons are too brutal and hard, and then they might take themselves out of here, but they're still welcome home. That's your home is in the light. We don't belong to this crappy planet. This is just a horrible earth school to learn really, really harsh lessons that I still find it hard to comprehend. But I do believe this. I genuinely believe this. I've seen visions of things from myself. I've experienced angels for myself. I've experienced past loved ones coming through to me and giving me messages. So I know there is 100% a spirit world. Your soul does not die. It never dies. Energy never dies. The love you carry with you in this life goes with you to the next life. It never dies. So anyone who's ever lost a loved one, I'm so sorry for your loss, but you will see them again. And they will come to you, whether the angels come and meet you and take you to them, or even your loved ones can come and be the one to take you over. Even your ancestors who you've never met will be up there. You know, it's like, I mean, people in Christianity will call it heaven, right? But, you know, it's not people in white robes with sitting on clouds stroking a harp. It's more, you know, sophisticated than that. And the same way we down here are living our lives, and, you know, in cities and organized structures, there's levels and organized structures up there, you know. And it genuinely is, to me, it genuinely gives me no fear of death. I don't fear death anymore. When I was a kid, oh my gosh, the fear I would have at the thought of not existing, like, oh my God, it was paralyzing, the fear. I remember, like, when my pets would die when I was about 10, And my mum would say, "Oh, they're dead. We're going to put them in the garden, in a grave." And I'd be like, "What do you mean they're dead?" And she's trying to explain, but she's not very intelligent, so she couldn't explain. And she's just like, "They're gone." Gone where? Why? I don't know, heaven. She's not even caring that what I felt, because she was a narcissist, a sadistic, cruel narcissist. She used to beat me up. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, another thing that I was made aware of was the life review. You're going to be shown your life, and that sometimes people who are going to be sent back are still shown their life. And in that life review, I guess it's a bit, when people say, "Oh my gosh, before I died, my life flashed before my eyes, every moment, good and bad." It's more sophisticated than that, because it's not just a flash while you're dying, it's after you've died and you've been taken to the other side, whether it's the level in between worlds, where you decide, like, you look at your life review, or whether it's properly on the upper levels, and so you'll be made to feel all the good things you did. So if you smiled at someone, if you saw someone was going to jump off a bridge and you told them, "No, please don't," and your intervention made them feel like someone cares, someone gives a damn if I live or die. This person doesn't even know me, but they don't want me to jump, but yet my own family don't care, but this person cares. Maybe it gives me some hope there's still good people out there. So I think the life review, you'll be made to feel all the good deeds you did, even no matter how small. It could be something as small as you smiled at someone, you held the door for someone. Like, you'll be shown every little thing, every time you had a pure intention and kindness, and you went out of your way when you didn't have to. But also you'll be shown and made to feel all the times you went out of your way to be cruel, to be nasty, or even the minor times where you were snappy, or you were verbally horrible or physically horrible, and then you'll be made to feel how much pain that person felt who you did that thing to. And so it will be both things will be magnified in order to give you the message of, obviously, it's, to show you that being better, being kind, showing love, this is what's important. Feel that love you gave out and feel it magnified. But also you're going to feel the hurt you caused. Now, you're not going to be like shot down to hell and poked with pitchforks, if you're not a terrible, terrible person. Now, I can't really speak on where awful, awful people go, the people who are the absolute worst, the people who have done unspeakable, terrible, unforgivable things. I haven't really been told specifically what happens to them. I know they'd be shown their life, and obviously if there's a ton of disgusting, awful things they've done, they will be given that pain that they caused all the victims. But I'm not entirely sure what happens to them if they're allowed to reincarnate, if they chose that life. That's what's confusing for me. Like a serial killer, did they choose that life? What do they gain from that? So that's very confusing. So I'm going to be honest about that. I don't know about that bit. And my friends and people who have had near-death experiences and been to the other side but then came back weren't privy to that information, weren't given that specific information. They were given the information about their life and about the collective conscious, humans as a group. But yeah, so I do believe that there are some people who aren't given a choice and are just told to go back because it's not their time. They're destined to do something really important. And it might not even be to change the world. It might just be they're destined to save someone's life. It might be one person, they're going to change their life. But it matters. The fact that they are going to have a purpose, it might be they just literally save one person's life, or a kind word they give someone allows that person to go on and do something amazing, which then changes a million people's lives. Do you understand? So it's a bit like, say if there was someone who's very intelligent but born into poverty, but then someone who has a lot of money gives that kid a scholarship, and then that kid goes on to cure cancer or something and cures billions of people and saves billions of lives. You understand? So, if you think of it like that, every human being can make a difference somehow. It's all a domino effect, a ripple effect. Like, it's very hard to grasp, though, because even I have a hard time getting my head around it. I do, believe in certain things, like when they say you go over to the light and you feel love and no rejection, just forgiveness, love, overwhelming, like you've never felt before. You feel that you go home. I truly believe that, because I never felt comfortable here on earth. I always felt like I didn't belong here, and I kept pining for a home, and I didn't know where the home was. I just felt like, I want to go home. I want to go home. Where is my home? Is it London? Is it Paris? Is it New York? Where is it? And I used to, you have your human identity. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. So you don't remember all the past lives you've had. Some people do, and then people call them crazy, but they're not crazy. Their mind wasn't wiped, or they just happened to remember. Maybe it was useful for that particular soul to remember their past life in order to pass a message on or something. But I definitely have had feelings of what happened to me in my past life. Like, I definitely had a fear of car crashes, and then when I was shown one of my past lives, I was killed in a car crash, and it was the same exact position I was sitting in that the car hit me. And I remember thinking, that's why I feel scared. That, like, every time I'm in a car as a passenger, and in the UK, the passenger sits on the left hand side and the steering wheel and the driver is on the right hand side. I think in the USA it's the other way around, and I don't know, I think Europe is the same as the UK, but I don't know about the rest of the world. But I always used to feel like on the left side of the car something's going to hit me. I just used to get this weird flash image and this fear in my head when we would drive out of a junction, to cross a crossroads or something. I'd always have this fear that a car is going to run the lights on the left and hit us when it was our turn to go and they should have stopped. And that weirdly was years later, I was shown this past life. And that's what happened. Someone ran into me, and it was so strange. And the person who died with me, who was the driver, he weirdly was in this life with me, and he was someone who you would call a twin flame or a soulmate. And when we met, when we met, it was like a lightning bolt went through my heart, but in a good way. It was like our souls recognized each other, and it was like so familiar and so like coming home. It was so hard to break away from him, and when I did break away from him, because he wasn't able to believe what I was telling him about how we're connected, our souls are connected. He was a very sort of weird person who didn't kind of understand that kind of thing. He wasn't very soulful. And let me just do a part 2 of this, because it's getting a bit long. So this is part 1, and I'm going to do a part 2. Right, I'm back now. Sorry, I had to step away for a moment. The last thing I was saying was how when your physical body is killed, your soul leaves the body before, before you're in traumatic suffering. Like, say something really, really terrible happened to you. Once your body dies, your angels, your guides will take your spirit out of that body so that you don't have to have prolonged suffering. So people will think you're just unconscious, or they won't realize that even if they've got you in a coma, sometimes people are like, well, their vital signs are still alive. There's brain activity, or we've got them in a coma but they're breathing, or stuff like that. This soul doesn't have to be in their body, or it can be that the body is still alive but the soul is experiencing the near-death experience, meaning their soul is up in the spirit plane, the 5D level, where it's being given information, it's being shown its life review, given the choice whether or not to come back, because sometimes it appears you're given the choice to whether or not to come back, and some people are not given the choice because they have something of worth and purpose that is going to help humanity or mankind somehow. So if it's like I mentioned in the other video, if you were like a really poor person who didn't have money for university or college to become a doctor, but you were smart and intelligent, and someone else who was just a generous rich person paid for your tuition or scholarship or whatever to a medical school, and then you grow up and become the guy who cures cancer and saves billions of lives, or something like that. So that person, if they died before their time, might be made to come back because their purpose is too great. It's of high value to the collective en masse. So, not saying that anyone's life is not important, not saying that one person's life is more important than another. It's just that the purpose or the thing that they've chosen in that life plan has to go a certain way by a certain time, and everyone's life plan is different. So apparently we picked the life plan, and another person who had a near-death experience, and they were making me aware of how when they went up to the spirit plane, they said they didn't want to go back to their life because they had issues with substance abuse, and they had a terrible life, substance abusers in their family who got them hooked on bad stuff, and from a young age. And so for 20 odd years, they'd just been in that terrible state of just abusing substances and not having a good life at all. So that person was, saying, I don't want to go back. There's too much suffering there. And that person had taken their life. And so when she was told she has to go back, she was like, well, what happens if I refuse, and don't go back? And then she was told, well, a reset would happen. You would be given other options, shown other life plans, but you will have to go back into one of these, be reincarnated and be born into one of these babies with this life plan. So she looked at these particular 3 life plans that were picked out for her, and when she read what each child was going to go through, it was worse than what she had been through, and she couldn't believe it. And she thought, oh my gosh, if I choose one of these, it's even worse than what I'm going through now. So she realized that, okay, I'll go back into that woman, because she felt detached from even the body, like, because your soul, that is you, like this body we're in now is not, it's just a vessel, and we have had many different vessels, male, female, black, white, short, tall, fat, thin, we're not this fleshy vessel. We are an energetic light being made of light in a human body right now. And the fact that, like, she said, okay, if I have to go back into her, how am I going to achieve anything or help anyone? Because look at the state my life is in. I need help. I'm going to need you to help me get off these substances. I'm going to need you to put people in my life who can help me with this. And they said, okay, we can do that. We can do that. So then when she did come back, and then she did feel, I'm going to try and go cold turkey. And it was very painful and hard. Then out of the blue, someone who happened to be someone who ran a rehab, came across her, and then she, explained her story, and the person said, oh, we have, a bed in this rehab. If you're willing to take it, we can help you. And then it started from there. And then when she went to the group therapy and whatever, and then there was other people there who could help her, and it was just a really beautiful story. She was just a lovely soul, and you could see that the terrible things that had happened to her, and then also the terrible things she might have done because the substance made her have to feed her addiction, and that would have made people look down on her as though she's not good enough because of certain things she might have done in order to keep her habit going. They would have looked at her like she's nothing, she's not worth saving, or she can't help anyone, or who's going to take an example from her, how can she lead by example? But now, after being clean and being able to connect with other good, pure, kind souls who genuinely, just like myself, just empaths and light workers and people who were put here, and we're not given a perfect life, not at all. We're not given an angelic life where we get a big mansion and money, and we're just throwing money out the window going, here, all you poor people, all you commoners, take some money. It's not like that for it certainly wasn't like that for me, and I'm sure it won't be. I'm sure I have more lessons to learn, and it's scary because I'm like, wow, how many more sufferings and lessons do I have to overcome? I keep climbing Mount Everest every year, and it's exhausting. How many more mountains are there to climb? It's frightening sometimes, and you really feel overwhelmed. Sometimes you have no one to talk to. Sometimes the people who even live with you, you look over and they're just on their phones. They're glued to their phones. They don't even ask you if you're okay. You kind of reach out to them and say, hey, can I have a conversation? And within 30 seconds of you talking, they're looking down at their phone, they're checking their phone, they got their earbuds in, they're secretly listening to a video they want to listen to, a frivolous, silly, insignificant, thing that's not important. They don't have good priorities, as in, if your friend is overwhelmed and depressed, shouldn't that be your priority to listen to them, even for 5 minutes? But some people just have no depth and no caring. That's the weird thing. Like, I wondered if the people who do the bad things down here, are they just pawns put in our way to test us? I wondered if some of us are the chosen people who have, these divine purpose that we're supposed to carry out, but we're given immense tests and suffering, very difficult tests. And I just thought, like, well, who are these bad people who are constantly put in our way, whether they're our boyfriends or girlfriends, whether they're our family, whether they're friends? Like, why is there a constant supply of bad intentioned people around all the time? You could literally build a cabin in the woods, and I swear someone will come and find you and do you wrong. And I've often said to myself, gosh, I wish I could just go and live in a cave in a mountain and just never see another soul, because the world makes you feel so angry and alone and fed up, and you could be in a city full of people, sitting in a place full of people, and you don't feel any love or any kindness. They don't even hold a door for you. They'll let the door slam in your face. They look at you with anger and scorn, and they're just so dark and miserable, most people, and it's very sad. Like, when you do come across other kind souls, sometimes they're not in a place where they can stay in your life. Like, for instance, I'll tell you a little quick story. I met someone who I think was an earth angel like me, and he'd suffered a lot in his life. And we only met for 4 weeks. I'd gone to a new job in London, and he was a bit older than me, but it's like age didn't matter to me. But our souls, it was like I recognised his soul. And then at first I thought, oh, I can't tell him about what I feel. He's going to think I'm weird. But he recognised it too. And it was like we just wanted to hold hands, no romantic stuff, just like let our souls be like two tornadoes, but not causing chaos, just spinning in unison, all calm and just beautiful. Our energies were so entwined without the need for any romance or anything. It was just so beautiful. And then he was like, oh, I feel so sad that I have to tell you, I have to go away. Before I met you, I already had, applied for a job in another country. My visas are all through. This is my last 8 weeks in the UK. He was from the UK, from Scotland, and I'm from London. And it was the saddest thing to be like, oh my gosh, I just found you, but our paths weren't meant to cross for more than 4 weeks, And it was so sad. And he was like, oh, don't worry, you'll find someone else. There's loads of people in the world. You'll forget me. And I never forgot him. Many, many years later, I remember I wanted to give him a gift. So I got him like a shirt. It was around Christmas time. So we went to a Christmas party and I gave him like an aftershave and a shirt and like cologne, men's perfume as we call it. And it was like he was so touched by my kindness, but he was kind too. And he just said, what do you want? Anything you want, I'll get it. And I was like, no, you don't have to do that. And he was like, no, I'm serious. And I said, well, I was going to buy myself this watch, on Carnaby Street when I get paid. And he was like, I'll buy it. He said, I'll buy you 2 watches if you want. And I was like, no, one's fine. They only had one anyway in the shop. It was like one of each style. There wasn't like tons of the replicas of the same style. And I was like, oh. And I remember even years later, I used to wear that watch. Even when the watch had stopped and didn't work anymore and I couldn't get a battery to fit it, I still wore that watch. Even when the face cracked, I took the glass off and just wore it because the wristband was really nice anyway and wide, like a cuff kind of thing, like a leather cuff, and it was my style and I really loved it. And I just used to feel so sad that I couldn't have kept in touch with him, because the sad thing was, I don't know if like he had to get a new mobile in the other country, but the number he gave me didn't work. It kind of got disconnected, and I kept thinking, oh, did he not want to keep in touch with me or something? But then I thought, well, no, he's in another country. He probably had to get a new phone. Not every country's SIM cards, work, and he's going to live there forever. But it was like part of me felt like he needed to disconnect because the pain of keeping in touch and knowing he can never be with me. And I kind of understand that now, because now I'm older. If that happened to me now, where I had to move to another country, then I come across someone and it was the best 4 weeks of my life, and then suddenly I have to let them go. It would have been harder keeping in touch, because you can never be with that person. I mean, I wasn't going to fly over to that country and visit him. It was very far away. It would have been super expensive. And also, it would have just been tethering us to each other in a way that wouldn't have made either of us complete, So, but I never forgot him. I know his name. I won't say his name on here for privacy reasons, but I can see his face now, just thinking in my mind. And he was just such a kind soul. And we just understood each other without even speaking. We understood each other because we met before, more than likely either he was part of my soul group or in a past life with me, or just meant to cross my path, but we already knew each other. And it was so angelic and beautiful, just the energy we felt from each other. Just sitting eating lunch together felt like we were on cloud 9, And that is something I don't find very often. I find people are very cold. They're not deep. They can't have a deep conversation with you. They don't connect with you. They don't, even when you have stuff in common, or even when you try to come up on what they like, even if you don't find it interesting, people are just so disconnected and cold and empty, and it worries me really to see that there's a lot more empty people on this earth plane, this earth school, whatever you want to call it. And I wonder, well, what's their purpose? Just to walk around being empty and hurting people? And like, are they just empty pawns here, like in the Matrix? Like what's the thing? The one that's chasing Neo, the ones in the suit. I forgot the one who Hugo Weaving played. I forgot the character's name. Is he Mr. Anderson or is Neo Mr. Anderson? I forgot. But you know, the bad ones in the suits that keep trying to catch Neo and Morpheus or whatever. But yeah, it's just very hard for me to understand why there's only a few good people around. There'll be compared to the bad, I mean. Now, I haven't met every soul on the planet. I can't say, oh, there's only this amount of good people, because I'm sure there's many good people around the world. But from what I've seen in my city or my life when I've traveled the world, you know, I had the opportunity to meet lots of different people from lots of different cultures through my work. And it was just such a strange thing. And also, I'd been married to someone from New Zealand, and so I'd lived over there for a while before I got divorced and came home. But and coming across people and just seeing the negativity they love to just throw my way for no reason. They'll just make up lies about you because they're jealous of you, and it just repeated over and over and over, and it was exhausting, and it's still exhausting, and it can still happen now. Like, I feel nervous to even start a new job or go around a new group or even go to a church, you know, because even in a church, these people can decide, I don't like you, and gossip about you and be nasty about you and cause trouble for you for no reason other than they are miserable and they can't find their purpose, or they don't understand, you know, what life is about. And life is about coming here to learn things, to spread love and protection and help each other. And for some bizarre reason, there's just the message is lost. Everyone's lost, it seems. You know, not everyone, but majority of people are lost. They choose the darkness, the demonic stuff. It's awful. And then they just try to recruit others or tear people down or blackmail people into being dark and nasty too. It's, you know, just look at Hollywood. I mean, my God, the things that they're up to over there makes me glad I'm stuck in the UK. But yeah, it's very hard to understand this world, and yeah, it is very, very hard for me, at least. And I would love to, you know, just have a safe base, as in, like, where I live, I've never been able to have the peace in my home. Everywhere I moved, there was terrible, cruel neighbours or racist neighbours or noisy neighbours or weirdo neighbours just targeting you for no reason. You know, like, that's one thing from childhood up until recently. I've never been able, and it's not my fault, I'm talking like, it must be part of this weird life plan to have idiot neighbours disturbing you all the time, having people going out of their way to hurt you all the time, having narcissist parents, having narcissist boyfriends, having narcissist friends, not choosing these people, but they're just always there, always in your life, pretending to be nice, and then when it's too late, you realise they're a narcissist. They're, you know, out to hurt you. And yeah, so it's really, really hard for me being in this earth plane, you know, even being in this body, you know, having health issues, having to go through painful experiences where your body is beaten and violated, and it's just like, you know, physically it's horrible, but then you're left with the psychological pain for years and years and years, and you can't get rid of that. You know, you want to get rid of that, but then you have CPTSD and fibromyalgia and this problem and that problem and panic attacks and flashbacks, and your nervous system is shot, you know, and you've got cortisol and stress hormones running through your body all the time because you're in fight mode all the time, because you want to protect yourself, because you've seen that anyone at any time can attack you. You know, there's no justice. The police don't even help you. The hospitals don't care. The community doesn't care. You know, it's weird. And so, yeah, to all the victims and survivors of terrible things in this horrible world, I just want to say, I wish you peace and protection. I hope that every innocent soul out there can get the help they deserve. If you need to reach out to like suicide hotlines or Samaritans or support groups, whether they're free or if they have a small fee, like maybe look for the free ones, if you're financially not able to go to the paid ones, but try and ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help, because this world is extremely difficult and cruel, and sometimes people feel embarrassed to ask for help, and sometimes you ask for help and don't get it. That's what's been my experience, and until I got to that support group, other people I'd ask for help, like people who are meant to help victims of the R word that I spoke about in the last video, they weren't helpful. They were just like, yeah, okay, we've got your name. And then you ring them. They say, ring me anytime when you're feeling sad and I'll talk to you. And then you ring them and you just want 5 minutes. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'm in a meeting. Oh, I'll call you tomorrow. Then they don't call you. Then you call them. Oh, I'm in a meeting. Well, how many meetings do you need? Like, you're in an admin meeting when your job is to be a counsellor to victims of violation and abuse. Like, what kind of useless people are you? Then I went to one group where I didn't even go back. I only went there once. And then first they said, and it was really far away as well. So first I said, I can't come, it's too far away. I didn't have a car. They were like, no, we'll pay your taxi fare, take a taxi. I said, are you sure? Because it's expensive. And yeah. And so I pay the taxi, go down there to some domestic abuse panel where they want me to talk. And then they tell me, no, we didn't mean we'd pay the taxi, we meant we paid bus fare. And I said, well, you told me to take a taxi. I'm not going to get 10 buses out to this place. I want to help people, but I could have done it over Skype, or you could have recorded what I said and played it to people. Like, why are you making this more difficult than it needs to be? And it was so bizarre. Like, they just didn't have that consideration in mind, that they just put me through a stressful thing. And I was like, okay, never mind. So then I sit down, and then when we start the panel, they don't want us to talk about our experiences. Oh, it's too graphic. Oh, don't talk about that. And I'm like, well, why are we here? If we're silenced and we're not allowed to speak. Oh, we're here to let's draw some pictures. And I was like, what are we, 5? I don't want to draw a picture. I don't want to colour in an adult colouring book. What is this rubbish? We need to speak. We need to tell our story. That's the whole point of this group. That's what I was led to believe. And the woman running it was a victim of the same kind of R-word abuse. So I didn't understand how she didn't want us to say our side or our story unless she was ashamed or embarrassed to speak on her story and it triggered her. But then why are you running the panel? It was very confusing, and I kind of felt like, no disrespect to her, and I'm sorry for her pain, because I know that violation, and, I understand the pain and stuff, but at the same time, you shouldn't negate or silence others because you're not coping with your stress and pain. Because you say you're running this thing, and apparently the only qualification for being the person running the group was that you had to be a victim of some kind of abuse. So these aren't trained counsellors or professional people or anything like that. Whereas I had a lot of training in counselling and psychology, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying I already had that. And even if I didn't have that, I'm an empath, and I'm very, able to heal others and help others just with my words and just with my comfort and kindness and support. And so I really could have ran that thing much better, but I just didn't even go back just because they weren't behaving in a way that was helpful to anyone. It just didn't. It seemed pointless, and a waste of our time, But yeah, so yeah, the last little thing I'll say, and then I'll wrap up this video, is just anyone who's lost a loved one, adult child, family, friends, anyone, just know they can see you from the spirit world. They can watch over you. They can walk with you. You also have guardian angels and guides. Your ancestors walk with you. You know, so when you're feeling low and grieving and sad and missing them, just remember that they want you to go forward in life and live your life till it's your time to meet them again on that spiritual plane. They don't want you to cut your journey short, even though I at times have felt like I can't go on. But many times I've remembered how, I imagine the timeline of my life that, can be seen in the spirit world. And I imagine and think to myself that, okay, imagine I have this big long timeline of my life that in the spirit world, the source or God can see it and know that, a year from now, she's going to get everything she prayed for and she's going to change a lot of people's lives. But because I couldn't hold on because the pain was too much, then if I cut my journey short, then I go up and look at my life review, then they would say, look at this, look at your timeline, look at your life review. You were going to change so many lives had you just been able to hold on one more year or one more month or one more day. And look here, this is where you couldn't hold on. This is where you cut your journey short. And look at the day after, you were going to get the phone call you prayed for. You were going to get that job you prayed for. You were going to meet this person who was going to help you change your life, or you help them change their life, and then it would be a ripple effect. You could, there's all these things we had planned for you, and I'm so sorry that you couldn't hold on. I'm so sorry it was too hard. That's the only thing that really keeps me going, to think that, if I have a purpose, that I'm supposed to be here. Sometimes another thing that was explained to me about the people who had a near-death experience was that sometimes you just being here to counter the evil, just you being a good soul, just you being pure of heart, existing in this earth realm, that alone is raising the vibration of humanity. That alone, that's something that I had to realize, that sometimes if I'm not actually out there constantly doing good deeds all day because I feel like depressed and I want to isolate, or I don't trust people and I'm scared to be around people sometimes because I'm like, I don't want any negativity, and the only way to avoid it is to just hide away, if you can. There are times I feel like that. And then I think, well, am I wasting my purpose? How am I going to meet these people I'm meant to help? How am I going to meet this person who's going to change my life? I just want to hide away, But weirdly, I really didn't think that it would be possible for me to help change someone's life, just talking to someone on the internet, for instance. But yet I was guided, and I know it's by God and his angels, to go into this a live stream, sorry. Totally what I felt was random, but obviously now I know I was meant to go in there. I was meant to cross paths with certain people, and those people had worse lives than me. Terrible things happened to them and their family, and I was the only one they could tell it to for some reason, or I was the only one who gave the kindness and sympathy and empathy that they never got from anyone else, and then I even pointed out when others weren't showing the normal respect to a grieving person. They were like, people were not just being nasty for no reason, and I would go in there and shut down the trolls and make them look at their behavior, hold a mirror up and say, this is what it looks like when you behave in this negative way. Do you like it? And they would realize, no, I don't like it. And then they would have to stop, because no one else would point it out, people would just let them be abusive or nasty or unsympathetic or cruel or spiteful for no reason. And then I would step in and say, no, I won't allow you to abuse this person. Not in front of me, not on my watch. While I'm here, you're not going to get away with it. And it changed so much. Whereas in other situations, you could see that the lack of boundaries people had, they were getting away with it. The abusiveness was just going unchecked. And then when I stepped into it, because of the person I am, and I stand for justice and helping others, and I don't tolerate abuse, and I always protect the vulnerable, and even if I have to get aggressive verbally to put someone back in their place or give them a taste of their own medicine just so they can learn, what it feels like to, you know, abuse people for no reason, and then they don't like it. You know, the bully doesn't like being shown what they are, and then they have to either go away or look at themselves and change. And I'll say, well, you can only stay here if you're going to change, you know, because I was a moderator and stuff, so I could block them or, you know, control if they were abusive. I could stop them. But yeah, it's very strange. And then I did come across someone in there who, you know, he clearly has, you know, so much pain, and he's not able to verbalize it, and that. But in a weird way, it's so weird to me that he's going through so much, and he had no idea that us crossing paths was gonna result in him helping me. So he's going through worse than me. He's got a lot going on. Terrible things have happened to him. You know, his life is not the way he wants it. He's in America, I'm in England, so we can't meet, you know, and I don't have any plans to really travel that far right now. I'll never say never, but right now it's not affordable or sensible for me to just up and fly off to another country like that, you know, because I have a lot of responsibilities here. But and he's not able to come here. So, but it's absolutely mind blowing to me. And I even said it to him, and he's thinking, "What are you talking about? All this spiritual stuff?" And I said, "No, you have to believe me. There is a reason we met, because the way you are is so different to me. It's like in real life, you would never expect me and him to ever talk or come or be in the same room. We're so different, and yet there is a part of our souls that recognizes each other, that understands each other. So for all he knows or we know, we're part of the same soul family. We've already met in a past life, and we chose this life, and yet we'd gone through years and years of our own personal pain in different countries, and then this one, what people would call a chance encounter, which I know it's not chance, it's not a coincidence, it's destiny. It was supposed to happen. It's like there's no way it should have had such a profound effect, in my opinion, if it wasn't supposed to happen. It's like changed my life in a way that I was not looking for or not expecting, and yet I needed it. And yet I fought against it initially. I was very like, when I saw, you know, certain things he would say and his behavior, it was so different and opposite to me. I was like, ugh, we have nothing in common. I'm sorry for your pain, but you're triggering pain in me from the past. And it was like, even though he was reminding me of people from my past who had done me wrong, because one minute he'd be nice, then he would lash out because he has, you know, anger issues or other issues, you know, caused by his trauma. And when he would, you know, do these things, then I would lash out because I've got anger issues and I've got trauma. But then somehow we would lash out and then come back together, lash out and then come back together. And every time I would try and get away, there was this huge, overwhelming pull to go back. And it wasn't a trauma bond. It wasn't like, oh, I'm a battered wife. It wasn't that. It was a soul pull, like, this is meant to happen. You're meant to go back. You're meant to learn to navigate this pain. He's triggering you because you have to look at why you're triggered. You have to review this pain that you try to push down or push aside or ignore, or just say, well, that's what it is, and I can't do anything about it, can I? You know, it really was like a very strange experience. I did not expect it to come up that way. Like, I was really shocked when I actually realized what was going on, because initially I didn't realize that it was, you know, some fated meeting. I didn't even really notice this person initially. They came in and I'm like, oh, he's one of many, okay. He's got a bit of a mouth on him, he's a bit tactless, he's a bit rude, okay. I don't really like people who are rude and don't watch their manners, but excuse me. And you know, but then as I heard his story, as I thought, oh my gosh, if I'd been through what he'd been through, I don't even think I could still be breathing. You know, it would be too much. And I thought, God, how is he still here? How is he not taking himself out of here? It's so much pain. It's too much. You know, and my heart was broken for him, and he couldn't allow that he couldn't allow that kindness, that empathy, because he was so guarded, you know what I mean? Like, he had such a big wall around him with barbed wire and spikes that he was just like, how dare you climb over the wall and try and hug me? How dare you climb over the wall, you know, metaphorically, because we're in different countries, but how dare you show me sympathy? That's kind of the weird reaction he had to any care and sympathy. He was so used to pain that he couldn't connect with positive emotions. It annoyed him when I tried to hold on. Sorry. Yeah, it almost, his trauma almost, it was almost like the closer I got to him, the more he pushed me away. Then because I'm so open, I'd already told him what triggered me, not realizing he was going to use it against me. But then at the same time, maybe not maybe, it needed to happen. You know, most people who are not broken and going through something, if you tell them your trauma, they'll be sympathetic, empathic, understanding. You know, some people just pretend to be understanding, but most people, if they're, you know, an empath or a kind person, they genuinely are sad for you, that you've gone through a lot of suffering. Like me, I'm genuinely sad for people. It breaks my heart to know so many people are, you know, suffering in the world all throughout history. Like, I could look at, you know, an event that happened 500 years ago and read about all the death and the torture and the terribleness, the unfairness, the injustice, the genocide, whatever it was, and my heart breaks for it as if I was part of it, even if it's not people I'm involved with, like, as in, like, the communities I'm around or whatever. It's just, yeah, my heart literally breaks for the suffering of this world. And that's the difference between an empath and someone who's just a bit sympathetic, a bit empathic. To be an empath is like having a special gift, you know, being an earth angel. That's what an empath is like. And yeah, it's very, very fascinating for me to talk about it on here, actually, because you know, I don't have tons of people who understand me in this world. I haven't really been able to connect with all my soul tribe. Maybe that's not meant to happen yet. You know, I've come across, like I said, a twin flame person, soulmate, but he wasn't meant to be with me happily ever after. He was just meant to teach me something. I was meant to teach him a lesson to learn, and it was a painful lesson. Sadly, it was through the pain that the lesson was learned. Then you have to split and get away from each other, because unfortunately it wasn't the happy ever after I was thinking it was going to be, and I didn't see it coming. So the lesson was extra painful. And yeah, I might talk about that in another video one day. But that was weird. But yeah, when I think back in my life and think, well, who are the main people who have been the most influential in triggering something big, like a big change or a big recognition of something wrong in my life or something I need to improve, or you know, they're like the catalyst, I guess you could say. And I've been the catalyst many times in other people's lives. Sometimes my mere presence in a group is like a bomb going off. It's like weird. I don't understand how I'm a catalyst for people I haven't even met, and I might join a music group or a dance group or something, like, where, you know, like, you go and take lessons or aerobics or something, or Zumba or whatever, and then somehow just my mere presence, I don't even have to say anything, and people are arguing over what they think I'm thinking, what I'm wearing, what I'm doing. Nothing they should be concerned about, but they're concerning themselves with nonsense and making a problem, or they're just making up lies because they're jealous. And then you think, well, why are you jealous? You don't know me. I haven't spoken to you badly. I haven't done anything to you. I could be sitting there eating a chocolate bar alone on a bench, and they'd be like, look at her eating a chocolate bar. And that's what was happening to me, just being targeted all the time by idiots, you know. And then, yes, some of those people I was supposed to cross paths with and have a negative interaction in order to learn a lesson, but it wasn't pleasant, and it was very upsetting. And, you know, it's exhausting being tested and tested and tested over and over and over. And sometimes, I know people say sometimes if something repeats again and again and again, it's because you didn't learn the lesson the first time. And I really have this feeling that forgiveness is one of the things I'm supposed to learn, because I never want to forgive anyone who's done me wrong. And people keep betraying me, and I refuse to forgive them. And even when I think I've forgiven them, I see their behavior hasn't changed. So I rescind it, I take it back, the forgiveness I either told them in a letter or to their face or whatever, or in my heart that I thought I'd forgiven them. And then I'm like, actually, no, you don't deserve it. But it's like, I truly believe forgiveness is something that I'm not going to pass that test. I mean, I've still got time. It's never too late. But right now, in this moment, I kind of feel like I'm failing that test, because I literally cannot forgive. But at the same time, there have been some people who I thought I could never have compassion for because of what they did to me, but then they have been through something terrible, and it did create a disorder in their brain, like a narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I'm not saying that I forgive the terrible things they've done for me, for R-wording me, for beating me. I'm not forgiving none of that. But at the same time, the forgiveness I have is not for the monster they became, but for the child they were that was abused, that created the monster, if you get what I mean. So I hope I said that clearly. I hope that makes sense. So I can have forgiveness and sympathy and empathy for the child, the innocent child they were, who was severely abused, and that created the monster they became, because their mind couldn't handle it, couldn't take it, and it split and create this split personality disorder of monstrous characters that took over them and caused them to do terrible things. The trouble is, if they can never overcome this personality disorder and they continue to do terrible things and are left unchecked and no one stops them, I mean, I don't feel like I have to forgive that monster, because even if, like, people say, like, oh, in my mind, you should at least try. You've been told you're doing monstrous things. Are you even trying to get help? Are you even trying to talk to someone who can help you react differently? You're not reviewing your life and looking at why you behave in this way, your triggers, or I mean, it's difficult, because with narcissistic personality disorder, the urge to do these things is always going to be there. But they should, if they I think it's when they lose everything. If they lose literally everything and are at rock bottom and homeless, that's the only time they'll feel forced to go to therapy, is if someone says you can get back your home and your family and your life only if you go to therapy. Then it's kind of like a bargain, like, oh, I have to bargain with you or I'm not going to get what I want back, which is sad that they can't come to the conclusion themselves. They have to either be locked away in jail or forced to do something, and that's where I find it hard to forgive the adult narcissist. Like I said, I forgive the child. Well, I mean, I can't even really say I forgive the child. What I mean is, because the child didn't do anything. The child was created, the monster was created from the abuse the child suffered. So what I mean is, I'm not saying I forgive the child as if the child did something wrong, because they're innocent. But what I mean is, I have forgiveness for the fact that, I don't know, or I have sympathy and empathy for the child that didn't get to live a normal life. I hope that makes sense. Like, yeah, because if I say I'm forgiving the child they were, that's like I'm implying that the child did something wrong. And they didn't. They were just an innocent 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, powerless. And I was, from 7 years old to 15-year-old, being beaten with a belt, slapped in the face, thrown across the room, all kinds of things by my parents, who were violent, narcissistic. They had narcissistic personality disorder, malignant, sadistic disorders, meaning they enjoyed inflicting pain. They enjoyed seeing the pain of making you homeless if you didn't obey, or lying about you, and yet I was blindly loyal to these monsters, because not because they deserved it, but because I was a loyal, decent person, and I felt like, well, I want my family to be normal. I had no idea that they could never be normal, and whether they wanted to or not, they could never be normal. I didn't. And then the sad thing is that the disorder makes them enjoy hurting you. So the closer you are to them, so I'm trying to get closer to them, to change them, to make them better, but the closer you are to them is the more threatened they are by you and will treat you worse. So that's why narcissists will treat strangers better than you, and other children better than you, and rub it in your face that, oh, I bought all the neighborhood kids toys and Christmas presents and took them on trip, but I didn't take you and I didn't buy you anything. And not that I wanted anything bought for me, I just wanted to not be beaten and not, and just feel like I mattered, like my life could be you cared about me as your child. But anyway, I'm going to end the video now. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And if you enjoyed anything you heard here, or if you could relate to anything you heard here, or take anything away and resonate over it, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate people watching my channel. I really genuinely want to help everyone out there to feel that they're not alone, and there's many of us going through hardship and suffering, but there are many of us who are like empaths like me, who really care and wish you nothing but peace and protection and love, and wish they could take your pain away. And I just pray that all those innocent souls out there will get the peace they deserve and the peace they're looking for. And I'm going to end the live now, and I'll go live again a bit later. So in the UK, it's about 7 p.m. in the evening. So maybe I'll go live in, I don't know, a couple hours, maybe two hours. So anyway, if anyone's watching, God bless you and take care. Bye for now.